Screw y'all, welcome back to Niner Wire. I'm your host, Sam, and today we are here for rapid-fire roster questions. The day before free agency hits, there's a lot of questions about this roster. I wrote down a few. We're going to answer them. We got a few guests for this. Pretty straightforward, rapid-fire roster questions. So for the guests today, we got Joseph right here, as he was on the last stream. We got Rohit right here. Guys, how you doing today?
Doing all right. How about you?
Pretty good, pretty good. What about you, Joseph?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure, man. Anytime. But guys, today we're got a few questions to answer, more than a few actually, but we're going to move through them pretty quickly, address every position on the roster, talk about what we need to do, what questions we have for them, and just break it down all to you right here, day before free agency. Really looking forward to it. Let's get right into it. Before we do, make sure to follow me on Twitter at NinerWireSam. My Instagram's at NinerWire_YT. If you're watching on Twitter, make sure to subscribe to NinerWire on YouTube. Post a lot of stuff on all these platforms, so make sure to check them all out. Also, guys, follow Rohit on Twitter at RohitKanan71. Also, tune into the Faithful Four podcast. It's a podcast with him, Kobe, who was going to be on. He couldn't, but hey, man, we'll get him back on another time. And two others, make sure to check that out. And as always, you got any questions, comments, concerns, make sure to leave them in the chat below. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So we're just going to go position by position, starting with quarterback, ending with safety or whatever that is, just in that order. So let's start off with the first question of the video, talking about the backup quarterback position. Last year we had Nick Mullins. We've had Bether in the past do stuff right there. Who's going to be the backup quarterback this year for you guys?
I think we might go quarterback with number 12, and I think whoever that quarterback is, he's going to be the guy who's going to be sitting behind Jimmy for at least 2021. And if Jimmy does get hurt, I think the rookie that we draft is going to jump in. So I'm not going to name the name.
You're predicting Garoppolo to stay. Interesting.
I don't see a way they move on, but I'm going to address that for later if we get another question for that.
Gotcha. Okay. What about you, Joseph?
I'm going to say the backup will be Justin Fields, and he will be behind whoever else we pick up, whether that's another rookie or maybe we sign a guy. I don't think Jimmy will be back if we do draft a quarterback, because the main reason we're getting a quarterback is to get rid of Jimmy's contract to re-sign other free agents.
Yeah, honestly, I got to say, I'm kind of with Joseph on this one. I personally think that the 49ers are going to move on from Garoppolo. And the reason being, the only reason is simply because of cap reasons. I mean, Garoppolo's contract's pretty inflated at this point. I think there's a lot that they can do with that money. And I think they can definitely move on for him. As for the backup, I think you're probably looking at you're either looking at Trey Lance or you're looking at that bridge quarterback that was going to be there in case the 49ers didn't get whoever they wanted. So a guy like Andy Dalton, maybe a guy like Tyrod Taylor, a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick, who might be too expensive, but someone in that bridge quarterback realm, I think will be the backup. As for starter, we'll get to that later, so stay tuned for that. Next question I got for you. Moving on to running back. Should the 49ers use a draft pick on a running back? And if so, when? I'm going to start this off. No. I mean, the running back class, I mean, there's definitely good options out there. But it's as simple as Kyle Shanahan can really work with whatever running back he wants. I keep saying it, I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying in the future. And I think if you want your running back, you just go free agency, you keep what you have on your team, or you go undrafted free agent. I don't think you need to waste draft picks on it unless you're round 7. That's probably the earliest I would do it, maybe round 6, round 7, once you got all your needs filled. I also think there's a lot of good free agents. I talked about this on my running back video, I believe with you, Rohit. We had Matt Breida as a good option out there. There's a lot of good running back options. Matt Breida is the one that stands out in particular, cheap option. You also still got Jeff Wilson. You still got Raheem Mostert. Still got JaMychal Hasty. Lots of options at running back. So I personally think you don't waste a draft pick on it unless there's a guy you absolutely love and he's in round 6, round 7, somewhere around there. That's where you get your guy. Otherwise, just wait until undrafted free agency or get a free agent or just avoid the running back position just avoid it at all in the draft. So that's my take on running back. What about you guys?
Running backs are far overvalued in the NFL draft. You'll see guys going in the top 10, top 15, and it's like, wait, why are you taking a running back that high? And because
I know
their shelf life is low. It really is. So it's even risky to like just take a guy that high because then you'll have to pay them a higher grade rookie deal, which is going to account more against the cap in the future. Then if you want to keep the guy, then you have to pay him even more money. So it doesn't make any sense to actually go after a guy in the draft. Plus, like you said, Kyle Shanahan can work with any running back. So just either go for an undrafted free agent, go for a cheap free agent, or just stick with what we got because we got good options in half.
Exactly. I'm totally with you on that. What about you, Joseph?
I do think we do draft a running back. It will be 6th or 7th round, and the guy I'm looking at specifically is Puka Williams out of Kansas. He's a stud. He had an off-field issue. I think something with his girlfriend, and he's a second-round talent, but he will drop. Will we get him? Probably not, just because of that off-field thing. We don't really have that kind of, we don't have tolerance towards that in our locker room. But he's a stud, and I do think that if we do get him, he will be amazing with us.
Yeah, that's an interesting guy you bring up right there because you saw the report that the 49ers just loved how he played. The off-the-field issue right there, that's definitely glaring for the 49ers. I mean, after what happened with Reuben Foster, they've avoided off-the-field issues at all costs. However, maybe round 6, round 7, if they really like this guy, I think he's like a 3rd, 4th round talent, and he's there round 6, round 7, I think you take a shot on him. It's not that risky. And it works out that way, in my opinion. The other running back who they could take, who probably won't play running back in the NFL, Joseph, this is your guy, Demetric Felton. That's another guy they could take. I wouldn't mind taking him round 3, round 4, somewhere around there. I think that would work out simply because he could be a Jalen Hurd replacement. We'll get to that a bit later. We'll talk about Demetric Felton a bit later. I'll just leave it at that. So that's all I got to say for that. You guys want to say anything else about running back? All right, perfect. Let's move on. That's the only question I got running back, actually. Let's move on to fullback. We saw the tweets last night from John Lynch, all those drunk tweets as we were kind of talking about before the stream. But Kyle Juszczyk, it seems like he's coming back. What happens if he don't? What's the best option at fullback if Kyle Juszczyk does not come back? Even though it could be certain, I just wanted to address this because there's still a chance it could just fall off last minute.
I think your best option is in-house, and I think you'd be looking at a guy like Charlie Warner.
Charlie Warner. I think, I'm kind of with you on that, Rohit. I think in-house is the best option, but I think Dwelley is going to be the better fit. Last year, I know people are saying, oh, Dwelley should not be a fullback. His blocking wasn't that good, especially towards the end of the season last year. He did a really great job blocking in replacement of George Kittle. When Kittle was out, Dwelley came in, specifically run blocking. There were a lot of good blocks I can name. Washington game, I feel like he had a really great game there. Against Washington, or it might have been Arizona. I forget which. No, not Arizona. Buffalo. It might have been one of those games, but I forget which one. But I think, in my opinion, Ross Dwelley is the better option than Charlie Warner, and simply because even though Warner's the better blocker, Warner does not have that much experience pass catching, and I definitely think a guy like Ross Dwelley is a guy who can catch the ball a bit more. I saw some stat. I forget what that stat is, but he does not have that. He does not have that many drops in his career so far. And I definitely think a Kyle Juszczyk replacement, definitely a bit raw, but I think it would work out right there with Ross Dwelley at fullback. Charlie Warner, not a bad option either. So,
for me, it's I value Dwelley's receiving abilities as a tight end too a bit higher. So I'm like, I want to keep this guy as a tight end too.
Yeah, for sure. I'm totally with you on that. Joseph, what you got on this?
I do think we're going in-house no matter what. Juice, Warner, Dwelley, don't see any other option at all.
Interesting. No other option at all. I definitely think, you got another guy I think you could look at is Josh Hokett, but as Nick says right here, Josh Hokett could be a good option. I don't know how ready he is for the NFL, but Nick says he agrees with Dwelley as well. I think staying in-house is probably the best option because they know the system really well. They know what Kyle Shanahan wants. So I definitely think getting to a guy like Ross Dwelley would be a great option for the 49ers at fullback. So, you guys got anything else on that?
I wanted to add, you said that you want someone in-house because of knowing the playbook, and that's exactly why. Juice has been known to be one of the smartest players on the team. You have to know the playbook. You have to know where to go, whether that's receiving or blocking. So I do think it will be an in-house guy no matter what.
For sure. Definitely. I'm definitely with you on that. So, and I think we all are. I think we all said in-house, chat saying in-house. So definitely with you. All right, moving on to wide receiver. I got a few wide receiver questions. I got 3, I think. First off, let's start with Kendrick Bourne, impending free agent for us. Is he the answer at wide receiver 3? Is it a good idea for us to re-sign him, or should we move on?
When you look at his production from year to year, he's only really gotten better, and he's been our main red zone guy since 2018. So, I'd love to have him back, but I wouldn't spend too much money on him. And at the same time, it's like we should probably get another guy who can complement Debo and Ayuk a bit more, who can also probably help open up the playbook a bit more. Because whenever we go to Kendrick Bourne, it's like, oh, there's nothing else that's really there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Kendrick Bourne, I mean, Sanjo Sunny says, yep, bring KB back. I'm kind of with you on this one, Rohit. I think it's more of a money game for Kendrick Bourne. If teams are offering him a lot, which I think could very much happen, I think there are teams where he would fit the system really well. Specifically a team like, I mean, the Jets are a good example. A lot of people say, oh, he knows Robert Saleh really well. That could be a good example. But I think just a team that doesn't have win now expectations, a team that just needs to really fill a hole. I mean, it could be win now, but they just need to fill a hole at a low cost. I think that's a good option for Kendrick Bourne. Teams could overpay him from what we want, and considering we're fairly limited on cap, especially with Garoppolo still in here, we got to pay Trent Williams, we got to pay everyone still. I definitely think that's a good idea to just wait out, see how it's a money game. But I definitely think there are good options to replace him, even though Kendrick Bourne has been a very reliable receiver for this team, even though he's had some dropping problems, which I don't think are as serious as people say they are. But I think you look at what Kendrick Bourne brings to this team. He definitely brings a great mentality to this team, great work ethic, great everything to this team. So losing him, it would suck, but he's a replaceable guy. I think it's, again, a money game. It really depends on how much he wants, how much other players want, and who would you rather have on this team.
Yeah.
Joseph, you got anything for this?
I do think it's more money based. I do think Shanahan wants him back. He's a guy that almost was cut 2 years ago, and he stayed on the roster. He proved himself. He proved to be, up until now, possible wide receiver 3 and a solid wide receiver 3. I do think it's up to the money. I think it's between us and the Jets. I don't have any info inside, but that's just my assumption. So if the money's there, then yes. I do think, like Nick said, Emmanuel Sanders would be a better option though. So there's that. Yeah,
that's actually a good point. Emmanuel Sanders, again, I think it might come down to money for him too. He is aging though, which definitely helps in our favor. But I definitely think Emmanuel Sanders, again, guy that knows the system, pivotal part to that 2019 team. And honestly, 2020 team, I think he brought that mentorship that this team needed at the wide receiver position. And that's why we're in a much more comfortable place with our receivers this offseason. So Emmanuel Sanders being brought back, I mean, I think everyone would just love to see that. But again, money game, something like that. But on this team, when we brought Emmanuel Sanders in, he was more of a wide receiver 1. Now he would be in as a wide receiver 3. He would be willing to take less of a role. And I think if you're willing to take less of a role, you're willing to take less money probably as well. I don't really know how that works. I'm not an economist or whatever you call that in the NFL. So yeah, I definitely think Emmanuel Sanders, bringing him back would be a decent option for this team. Again, there are other options that are fairly cheap. I'll have to look at what I wrote down for some of my other notes later. From an earlier video, the one with Rohit, there were some pretty cheap options out there, but this is a deep wide receiver free agency class. So that's another thing that's you do not undermine that. The 49ers could very much replace Kendrick Bourne. There's a lot of guys they could replace. And if you guys already move on.
I know, I just got one more thing to add about the whole Emmanuel Sanders thing. What makes the Emmanuel Sanders thing interesting is that when you look at wherever he's gone in his career, he's almost immediately established some form of chemistry with the quarterback of that team. And so let's say we bring in a rookie to lead the team in 2021, or let's say we bring in a bridge quarterback while the rookie develops or something. Emmanuel Sanders will somehow be able to just create a chemistry with the quarterback no matter what the situation is. I mean, we saw that in 2019 when he was with us in San Francisco. The first game he played with Jimmy, the game against Carolina, quick out, touchdown pass, and then and you saw the chemistry develop over the season. Like if Jimmy needed a play, he would look to Sanders and he got the play done.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think Emmanuel Sanders definitely helped Garoppolo as well. We saw that a lot with Emmanuel Sanders, and I definitely think, I mean, if we bring in Emmanuel Sanders, that would just be a massive addition to this team. So I definitely think it would work out with Emmanuel Sanders. I don't think you can go wrong with Emmanuel Sanders. It's kind of like a money game, and we've been talking about about money, which kind of leads me to my next question. Should the Niners spend somewhat big on receiver? And I know this is a very vague question, but when I say somewhat big, I'm talking maybe a bit of an overpay for what we're looking, maybe a bit more of a cap hit or an early round draft pick, something like round 2, round 3. There could be guys that we're high on. I don't really know. Again, deep receiver class, deep free agency class. There could very much be guys that Kyle Shanahan loves. So Are you guys willing to do that? Are we willing to spend someone on a wide receiver somehow in free agency or the draft?
I'm willing to spend a high draft pick, like a second or a third rounder. Definitely not a first unless we trade back, but a second or a third rounder because I mean they're gonna be on the rookie pay scale. So I mean yes, it's a high draft investment, but in terms of money and finances, it's gonna be a lower cap hit. And so you can develop the guy, have him like kind of carve out a role for himself, and maybe create a three-headed monster with Debo and Ayuk. But free agency, I don't think we're going to do that because we got too many in-house options to do that to work with. In terms of like, well, not in-house options in that sense, but like we got a lot of free agencies that we got to sign, Williams, Juszczyk, guys like that. So I don't think we'd have the money to expend in free agency.
Yeah, free agency might be a bit rough. I think you're probably looking more at the draft. However, I mean, there are guys that could go for a lot less money than you think. One guy in particular that I've been thinking about him a lot. Well, it could be a reach with money wise, but AJ Green has not done that well recently with the Cincinnati Bengals. Hasn't done that well. Just hasn't had much of a role on the Bengals. And when he's on the field, when he's healthy, when he has a role, he is a top 5 wide receiver. He has been a top 5 wide receiver in this league. And I mean, yes, he's older. Yes, he probably won't have as big as a role in the NFL again, but bringing him in would be insane for the 49ers. And if you got that at a cheap deal, just imagine this offense with Debo, Ayuk, and AJ Green. Again, could be a bit of a reach, but I'm totally with you, Rohit. I definitely think free agency could be hard. However, I mean, as I'm saying, it is a deep wide receiver free agency class, and maybe there are other guys going for a lot. Teams are filling needs like that. There could be some low-profile guys that they're just looking to fight for a job, something like that. So, yeah, I'm totally with you on that for sure. What you got, Joseph?
I do think this wide receiver core surprisingly could look a lot more different than what we think it might look like. I'm going to go a little bit more into that into the later questions because I kind of have something. But I do think that we could possibly spend some money on a guy, maybe like Juju Smith. It sounds kind of weird now, but I'll explain myself a bit later.
Yeah, and also Richie James. No one talked about Richie James. Last Second Sports right there. James is still a very solid third option. I'm totally with him on that. And I definitely think Richie James, the thing with him, again, an in-house guy, as Rohit was kind of talking about, in-house guy. The thing with Richie James, what I think a lot of people are undermining is he stepped into that role because he had to, because there were so many injuries. But I definitely think I'm with him that Richie James is a solid third option. If you don't want to spend that money, I think you can put Richie James there. Last season, in my opinion, was by far his best season as a 49er. We saw him really in a kick returner role at first. And then you had Richie James. He kind of lost that, and now he became a third option for this team. That could very much happen right there. So Richie James, I definitely think is a solid third option. And then Cordova Patterson, I think Patterson could be a better kick returner, punt returner, something like that. That's something that we heard that happened last year. We didn't really have that. Again, as Nick says right here, Travis Benjamin still on this team. That could be another option. We'll get to Hurd in a minute, by the way. So we'll talk about that a little bit. River Craycraft as well. That's another guy who the 49ers can bring back for special teams. So, there's a lot out there. And I think it also depends. Do the 49ers want to put Richie James back in that special teams role? Because if they do, they're probably going to find someone else. If they don't, I think Richie James would be a very solid third option. So you guys got any thoughts on Richie James or anything like that?
I like Richie James as a receiver, but as a returner, he's left my head scratching a bit. I'm like, wait, what are you doing? Because, no, never mind. That was River Craycraft. I was thinking about the one of the punt returns in either the Seattle or the Arizona game, and there was like nobody within 10 yards of our return and just fair catch. And I'm just like, why?
I know. Sometimes, that was the problem for us last year. I think with everything I think Richie James is a decent kick returner, not a good punt returner. I think punt returner is something that this team needs. They haven't had one for a while. So again, Cordell Patterson could be a very good option. They could use Ayuk there. I don't think they want to. He seems like he's going to be wide receiver 1 for this team going forward, especially if Debo's injuries keep coming up, as the comment says right here. So, it's definitely interesting to see what happens with this wide receiver 3, and I definitely think there could go many ways with that. And kick returner and punt returner too. There's a lot of good options there too. And
when you brought up AJ Green, like that would be even more interesting because, I mean, yes, he's been on the older side. He's had his injury history, but what makes him an interesting signing is that you're bringing in a guy who's 6'4", 207. I mean, we haven't had a red zone wide receiver that can actually dominate in the red zone. Like, I mean, yes, we had Kendrick Bourne, who was our guy in the red zone, but he wasn't like dominating guys in the red zone. He was just like, he'd find the soft spot and just sit there. Whereas AJ Green could be a guy where he could just like throw an end zone fade or a jump ball or something, and he could go get it.
Exactly. And I mean, AJ Green, again, it comes down to a money game for everything. Literally everything is going to be a money game for the 49ers. And that's why I kind of asked the question, should the Niners spend somewhat big on wide receiver? Because, I mean, it's still up in the air at this point. I mean, personally, I say go draft maybe if you want to. Free agency, maybe not. I think it matters more. Just get the positions of need. Left tackle, cornerback, Kyle Juszczyk. Lock those three up before you move on to wide receivers. So that's what I'm thinking right now. And yeah, Travis Benjamin, probably going to be the returner next year. If he stays on this team, we'll have to see what happens there. So for sure. You guys got anything else to say on that?
I wanted to add in two guys I've been talking about since halfway through the season. Cordova Patterson and Keelan Cole. I think Keelan Cole is a great returner, great kick returner and punt returner, and could be a really solid wide receiver 3. He'd fit really well with Shanahan. I think that's a big name to look out for. It's not a big name, but he can fit really well with us.
Yeah, Keelan Cole. Honestly, that is a guy I mentioned. I definitely mentioned the video with Rohith. Again, I think I took down the notes on my notes section. I think I just replaced them with other ones, which is my mistake for that. But yeah, Keelan Cole is a fantastic option for this team. He can be a kick returner, be a punt returner. He can do that, or he could be a wide receiver 3 on this team easily. I think, and again, money game, but I definitely think Keelan Cole could be one of the best options for this team. I'm totally with you. And I know there's a lot of other guys I'm not mentioning. So guys, check out the video I did with Rohith and Jordan, who's not on the stream today. But guys, check out that video if you want more wide receivers. There's a lot of stuff there. We talk about a lot more guys. So very interesting video. Check that out if you want a bit more. You guys go with that question? Or go ahead.
Keelan Cole's a guy who's interesting, but when you look at his like stats and like if you look at the way he plays, he kind of just reminds me of a faster Kendrick Bourne without the red zone prowess. And I'm just like, I mean, if we want to bring a guy like that in, might as well bring Kendrick Bourne back in because he already knows the system. So it's like you don't have to spend more time trying to teach a guy a system again.
Yeah, I mean, Kendrick Bourne, I think the thing with him, rather than Keelan Cole, I think the only difference is special teams. Kendrick Bourne does not do much on special teams for the 49ers. Keelan Cole does a lot on special teams for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I definitely think bringing that special team presence, which, by the way, is something that we need to address this offseason. Special teams was not that good last year. We got to pick guys that can.
That's being generous.
Yeah, I mean, and it's being generous that I said that it's not that good. It was terrible last year. We definitely need guys on special teams that can help. Specifically, I mean, really everything on special teams besides like maybe punting, kicking. I don't know. Long snapping, got the best long snapper in the league. So there you go. Bay Area Baller 18 right here says Golden Tate. That's another very cheap option. I know that's a guy from, I mean, he's a Seahawk guy. I think most Niner fans just hated him, but that would be kind of fun to bring him in, I guess. Wide receiver 3, kind of aging. Kind of did okay with the Giants. Not the best. He'll be
33 when the season starts, so I'm not willing to roll the dice on him that much.
Well, if he's 33, are you willing to roll the dice on AJ Green?
Oh, wait, never mind. AJ Green's going to be 33 as well when the season starts.
Yeah,
I thought AJ Green was a bit younger.
Yeah, I think Golden Tate's going to be a bit cheaper than a guy like AJ Green. So I would definitely think Golden Tate. If you have to pick between those two options, you want to stick with money. I think you go Golden Tate, but if you want more talent, you go AJ Green. That's simple. So I personally like the idea of it. Again, money game. The wide receiver is going to be all money game. There are a few positions. We'll get to them a bit later where it's not going to be about money. It's just going to be about getting the guy you want, no matter the cost, in my opinion. So we'll have to see how it does. But Golden Tate, I definitely like the option right there. Also, slot receiver. That's another thing. I know I'm kind of adding a lot of questions to this, but let's just answer Nick's real quick. Do you think the Niners bring back Trent Taylor to come back? No. I think Trent Taylor's kind of done with this team. He had a terrible season last year. We had high expectations for him. Kind of fell off. I think the lack of Garoppolo, his talent. I think Garoppolo, he did well with Garoppolo, but I kind of fell off. So I don't think we're bringing Trent Taylor back. I think you find a guy. I mean, we brought back River Craycraft. I think River Craycraft just fills in that hole right away. So I don't think we need Trent Taylor back.
Yeah, I don't think we're bringing him back either. I think, and also it's the whole injury thing again, because he had the foot surgery back in, 18, 19? And I don't think it ever healed.
Well, I mean, yeah, he missed all of the 2019 because of it. 2020 definitely looked a bit slower. Definitely did not look like the Trent Taylor we used to know. I mean, it's a new Trent Taylor, and I don't think he's going to do – I mean, if we bring him back, I think he'll probably be a training camp cut or something like that. I don't think he's really going to bring anything to this team. We have River Craycraft already. I mean, it's got to be like a minimum contract. If you really want to bring him back, it's got to be that. And it's got to be – I mean, he's probably just going to be a depth piece just to fill out the 90-man roster. That's really all I'm thinking right now with Trent Taylor. So, for sure. All right, you guys want to address any other receiver? We have one more receiver we're going to talk about that. I think a few of you guys have mentioned in the comments, but let's get right to it, I guess. Jalen Hurd. Obviously, you've had those injuries before. You've had a lot going on with Jalen Hurd. Is it time to move on for him? Is it time to give up on him? Is it time to find a Jalen Hurd replacement for this team? Or should we just not find Jalen Hurd replacement, just move on from that era of trying to get a guy like Jalen Hurd? Is he kind of like a one of one guy or something like that? I don't really know. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, it's tricky because we've never seen him on the field. I mean, he had the lingering back issue in 19, then the torn ACL in 2020. I mean, the back issue is what's really concerning for me because that's one of those things where if that doesn't recover properly, you could re-injure it to an even worse degree. I mean, we're kind of seeing that with D Ford right now. So yeah, that's the only thing that's really concerning me because the ACL thing happens all the time. It's literally a freak injury. All you gotta do is move your leg wrong, boom, it's gone. So like I can kind of excuse that, but it's a back issue for me. That's the problem. So at this point, I'm like, with Hurd himself, I'd say pull the plug on that project.
Interesting. Pull the plug. Last Second Sports definitely disagrees with you on that. And I'm also kind of going to disagree with you on that. I definitely think Jalen Hurd, he's still in the rookie contract. I think that really what makes it, breaks it for me is that fact that he's still in the rookie contract. It's a cheap contract. And Kyle Shanahan, I mean, he reached on him in the third round for a good reason because he wants to do a lot with a guy like Jalen Hurd. So I definitely think he can work out with Jalen Hurd. He's got to stay healthy. I mean, I think this is really his last season, possibly in the league. If he's not going to do well, then he could be done. Just injuries, it's not going to work out for that. One guy, I talked about this earlier, Demetric Felton, could be a decent replacement for him. Again, he's not going to have the height, but he has the speed. He has the running back. He has the wide receiver. Tight end, I mean, he hasn't done that as much. That he could also be, I mean, if we keep Jalen Hurd and he's healthy, he could be the tight end too for this team, which would be very interesting. That's going to be my next question, but let's stick to Jalen Hurd for a little bit more. I definitely think Jalen Hurd, I think it's a bit too early to pull the plug on him. I think you keep him for one more season. If he's unhealthy, then you cut him. I mean, it's a low risk, high reward thing. So I think that's why you keep Jalen Hurd. What you got, Joseph?
I really think it depends what question we are asking. I don't like the question saying, do we replace Jalen Hurd? Because he never had a solidified role on this team. So there's nothing really to replace. I think it's more of a plug-and-play thing to where he has to earn a role instead of someone having to replace him. He never played a regular season game. So I do think he's kind of done, but it doesn't hurt us to bring him back, to give him another chance, especially since he's on his rookie deal. So I'm not pulling the plug on the project, but there's nothing really to replace, so I can't give a replacement.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's going to be the one thing. I definitely think it's going to be hard to find that. There are some good options out there. Another guy, Tamorion Terry, I don't know how the running back thing, it's going to be a late round guy, and that's another guy with off the field issues, as we kind of talked about with Puka Williams. Could be someone like that. It's definitely going to be interesting with Tamorion Terry, but there are some decent options. There was a free agent. Oh God, there was a free agent I thought of that could be a good replacement. I'm trying to remember who I said. There was I'll come back to that later. I'll figure that out. If I can remember it, I will bring it up. But there's a free agent out there. Completely forgot who it is. It's kind of blowing my mind right now. It's kind of just hitting my head right now. I don't really know, but yeah, he was a guy that I also thought could be a good replacement for Jalen Hurd. If I think about him, I'll bring him up again. Or you could just watch the video I did with Rohith on the wide receivers, running backs. We talk a lot about that there. So that's my thoughts on Jalen Hurd. You guys got any other thoughts on him? All right, perfect. Let's move on to tight end. As I said, Jalen Hurd could play tight end. I think the Niners do need another tight end on this team. I think Jordan Reed will probably leave in free agency. He did not have that connection with the backup quarterbacks, and I think that's probably why that's going to happen. But tight end 2, I think Ross Dwelley could be a candidate for that. Is that the right option, or do you go after a guy in free agency for that, or you stick in-house? So let me just rephrase the question. Do you go after a free agent for your tight end 2, or do you stick in-house and go with a guy like Ross Dwelley or Jalen Hurd?
I mean, at this point, it's like, are we going to move Dwelley to fullback if we don't bring it back Juice, or are we going? Because I think if we answer that question, we'll find the answer to this question. Because if we don't bring Juice back, is our fullback one going to be not Ross Dwelley or Charlie Warner, or even potentially Josh Hogan? So unless we figure out that question, we're not going to find an answer to this one.
Joseph, what you got for this?
We talked about it in our video last time. I do think that we go out of house. We get a free agent guy, someone cheaper. I'm kind of blanking. You mentioned some really good names last time, but
I think Gerald Everett's probably my top option for this. But yeah, Gerald. I'll talk about Gerald Everett for a bit real quick. I mean, first of all, Bean and I, or Joseph and I, did a video on the tight ends on the offensive line. So make sure to check that out. That was our last video on this channel, I believe. So check that out. But I definitely think going out of house is going to be the best option. I don't necessarily know if Jalen Hurd or Ross Dwelley are bringing the things that we want in our tight end 2. When we brought in Jordan Reed, he was already better than Ross Dwelley from what the tight end 2 perspective, in my opinion. And I know Ross Dwelley didn't get much of a chance, but Jordan Reed definitely helped the system a bit more, in my opinion, than Ross Dwelley in the same role. So I definitely think going out of house and getting an option right there would be fantastic. Ovio Bosa says Rob Tunyon. I definitely think he's probably going to be a bit too expensive. He was a guy who should have made the Pro Bowl. He should have made the Pro Bowl right there. So I definitely think getting a guy like Rob Tunyon a bit too expensive. But Gerald Everett, I like him. He's a receiving tight end. He's from an opposing team in our division, so you'll get some system help right there. So I definitely think he's a good option right there. There are other good options. If you want a guy in the draft, Trey McKitty out of, I believe, Florida State or Georgia. I forget which way he transferred, but that's another good option for the 49ers in the draft. But there are some decent receiving tight end options. I definitely think you got to take a look at a few of them to bring into this team. All right, you guys ready to move on?
Yep.
Let's do it. All right, offensive line. This is probably one of the bigger needs for this team. Again, you have quarterback, offensive line, and then you got defense. You got that edge position and quarterback. Those are probably my 4 biggest needs. Not in that order specifically, but offensive line. Let's start with Trent Williams. Must bring back, top priority of this offseason. But if he leaves, what's the best option in your opinion? I'll start. I definitely think there's not that many options out there. If you want another tackle, you could go after an Orlando Brown. I think he might be a bit too expensive considering what you're looking at with that first-round pick. If you want a guy in the draft, I would probably go – I think there's 3 guys I would go for this left tackle position. Rashawn Slater, who I think could also work out at right guard. We'll talk about right guard in a second. Same with Elijah Vera-Tucker. Very similar players right there. If you want a true left tackle, you go after a guy like Sam Cosmi, who's my tackle 5 right now. I think Sam Cosmi, that guy, I mean, he held in 2019 against LSU, he held Kayvon Chase on so good right there. I definitely think you got a guy. I think you can bring him in. He can start right away. He's a plug-and-play guy. I think he can be really good in this league. So those are 3 guys right there. I might as bring up a 4th guy, Tevin Jenkins. Not as polished as left tackle. He's my tackle 4, though. Great swing tackle. Might help this team, especially if McGlinchey's not doing well. Or maybe you move McGlinchey to left tackle like he did in college and then put a guy like Tevin Jenkins at right tackle. I don't know how that works, but Tevin Jenkins can also play guard. Those are 4 guys you can look at, but the top 3 I think are Vera-Tucker, Cosmi, and Rashawn Slater, in my opinion, if Trent Williams leaves.
The McGlinchey point you brought up is actually really interesting because left tackle was his natural position in college. I mean, and we had Joe Staley manning the left tackle position when he came into the league in 2018, and now he's starting to struggle in that position. So if we don't bring back Trent Williams, do you think it's possible that McGlinchey would have a career resurgence in 2021, moving back to his original position?
You know, I think He's got to get the pass protecting down. That's the really big thing with Mike McGlinchey. The pass protecting has to increase, and that's my short answer. I see a comment I just wanted to address real quick. It's from Eric Sully right here. There's so many good O-line and that got cut. I'm not too worried about Trent too much. And to that, I disagree. I actually really think the only good left tackle out there right now is Eric Fisher. And Eric Fisher, Russell Okung, those are the two guys, and they are nowhere near Trent Williams' caliber. So I'm definitely worried.
Well, I mean, Eric Fisher kind of held his own against Nick Bosa, but I'm not going to go there.
Hold up. Again, he's coming off an Achilles injury too.
Oh, right.
That's another thing. Yeah, that's another thing to keep in mind. Eric Fisher, if you get it, he might not play. This season, you probably have to go Brunskill at left tackle or a guy like Justin School there. I think keeping Trent Williams is definitely our top priority. And I definitely think the replacement options for Trent Williams are probably going to be in the draft. I don't know, Joseph, what do you think about that? I mean, you and I talked about that a lot. We think draft kind of, so I want to hear from you again what you had to say about that.
Trent Williams is easily the best left tackle available. I'm not sure if Rohit wanted to have a pun there, but I do think Eric Fisher definitely held his own against Bosa. But but I do think that Trent should be back. If not, I do think it's going to be Slater. Maybe we bring both Williams and then have Slater either replacing McGlinchey or moving to right guard and eventually kick him out to right tackle.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. And speaking of right tackle, Mike McGlinchey and the Colts rumors. I'm just gonna say it real quick. If you guys want to answer it, go ahead. I'm not buying that right now. I think it just opens up another hole for this team. I know that Kyle said, as Eric said right here, he's not moving Mike. I mean, he said he's not moving Mike. It's that simple. I thought for some reason, I thought he said he's not liking Mike for some reason. But yeah, he's not moving Mike in my opinion. I think it just opens up another hole for this team, another pretty big hole. You're going to have to replace that somewhere else, and I just don't think it's going to work out. So, frankly, I'm not buying the Mike McGlinchey rumors to the
I think it opens up a can of worms because then you have even more questions to ask and like more questions to find answers for. So I think ultimately it would do more harm than good.
For sure, definitely. All right, I see a lot of comments about center right now, and I want to address that. I have a question about center I want to ask you guys, and I'll start this off. Can Ben Garland start at center? Yes, in my opinion, Ben Garland actually should start at center. Here's why. You can use the money somewhere else. It's that simple. Ben Garland, in my opinion, is a starting caliber center in this league. Although not the best, he can start at center, plug and play guy, start at center, do a pretty good job for the 49ers as he has done in the past. In my opinion, you keep him at center, then you can use more money to get Trent Williams. You can use more money to get an edge. You can use more money to get a cornerback. If you can even use more money to get a quarterback if you want. It simply comes down to a money game, and I definitely think keeping Ben Garland on this team would be really nice for the 49ers to have. I've also heard rumors that they like Brunskill a bit more at center. I personally like Garland a bit more at center, but I think Ben Garland should be the starting center next year, saving a bit of money. Again, I would not mind. They said Alex Mack right here and Corey Linsley right there. I definitely think I wouldn't mind those two, but I think Ben Garland is probably the best option at center for this team, considering that we have other needs on the team. And frankly, I know both of you guys said right here, let Trent walk. I think that's kind of crazy in my opinion. I'm not letting Trent Williams walk. I'm going after him at all costs, keeping that left tackle there. I mean, he's by far and away our best offensive lineman. Our offensive line struggled last year, and it could struggle next year, especially if Trent Williams is not there. I don't think center is as important to this team as many people think, and I think Ben Garland is a guy who can fit in right away, start right away, and do a really good job for the 49ers. What you guys think about Ben Garland? Or do we replace Ben Garland? What do you guys think about that?
Okay, I'll go first because I think Rohit is thinking about it. Can Ben Garland play center? Yes. Should he? No. And I mentioned this in last stream, and the big problem, there's been play calling, or what is it like, talking issues on the O-line with calling out, mainly with the center. There needs to be a veteran there. I mean, Garland could be a veteran, but I think a guy like Alex Mack or maybe Linsley could step in there and completely control that. And I think that's a huge problem that we had. There's a lot of missed assignments that completely needs to be handled, and Mack or Linsley will fill that need or fill that.
Well,
gap.
I I just want to say something real quick. As Hades says, Garland's health, yes, it's a bit of a question mark, but that's also kind of going after your point being right there. Garland was not the starting center for a lot of the season last year. He had those injuries as he missed the first 3 games, I believe. He played like week 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe, I forget. Oh no, he got injured week 6. So I think he only played 3 games last year. Something like that. I forget what it was. But I think if you're looking at more of the play calling issues, that's more on Brunskill's part. Because looking at week 4, 5, and 6, week 4 that was really, week 4, 5, and 6, 4 and 5 were just awful games, and I think the quarterback play had a large part to do about that. And Brian Allen for week 5 and week 6, that was one of our best games of the season right
Don't
there.
say that name. Don't say Brian Allen here.
Oh, okay. But week 6 was one of our best weeks of the season. Garland was at center right there. After that, you had Brunskill against the Patriots, against the Jets. I think there are a few other teams. Yes, there were some play calling issues, but I think the majority of those play calling issues, if that was a consistent thing throughout last season, it's got to be on Daniel Brunskill, not Ben Garland, because Garland was only in for a few games, or even Hronis Grosso. I don't really know. Hronis Grosso only started like 1 game or something. I forget, but I think that's more on Brunskill, and I think health is going to definitely be a bit of a question mark for Ben Garland, in my opinion. So I definitely think that's a big concern with bringing him back. But again, I don't think you need to spend big at center like Alex Mack, like Corey Linsley. I think you can move on. You can just move to someone who's a bit cheaper, use that money elsewhere. That's my take on that.
I mean, for me personally, I'd like a center with more experience at the position because that kind of helps with like seeing the field and making protection adjustments, and would help with the miscommunications, as Joseph was alluding to earlier. Because we saw. Because he was right. We saw a lot of missed assignments earlier, especially on that right side of the offensive line, namely Mike McGlinchey, and that's kind of been a talking point for this offseason, and even when we talked about the tackle position earlier. So I think having a more experienced center would help mitigate those issues. But I agree with Sam here that you don't necessarily have to spend a lot of money. We can get a veteran for cheap. That'd be great. But I think our best hope is that Garland learns to grow at that position and actually learns to see the field better and helps with the communication, because ultimately the communication is what's going to make or break the offensive line.
For sure. I think you just need a good communicator out there. And yes, Garland's not as good as Weston Richburg was for this team. I think that's pretty simple. Weston Richburg, it's safe to say that he's done now, career-wise probably done, so that really sucks. So best of luck to whatever happens to him. But I think it definitely comes down to play calling, experience, communication. If Ben Garland's not doing that, and if he is the problem, they're going to move on for him. And it's going to be evident right away that they're going to move on for him, because simply they're just not going to offer him a contract. He's going to go somewhere else. That's simple. But as for, I'm kind of still in that thing where I think you spend a bit cheaper at center, but you definitely have to get a starting caliber center. It's that simple. You have to get a starting caliber center for sure. It doesn't have to be a guy like Corey Linsley or Alex Mack. No, but it has to be starting caliber at the very least. And I think Ben Garland is starting caliber. That's why I definitely think we should go after him and just re-sign him for 1-year deal, maybe something like that. If he doesn't do well, so be it. You can just move on, maybe kick Brunskill in, and maybe you draft a guy at right guard. As I've been saying for a while, maybe you do that. So for sure. Speaking of right guard, if you guys are ready to move on from center, let's talk about right guard. Okay, so right guard, is that a need for this team? Yes or no?
Yes and no. Obviously, if you can get better at the position, get better. But at the same time, like we said in this entire stream, it's a money game. Like, if you can get an upgrade for cheap, get the upgrade. If you can't, just roll with who you got and just hope that whoever's under center for 2021 can either get the ball out quickly or can extend the play on his own.
What you got, Joseph, for this one?
It's not a need at all. I think if we go Slater and we move him at right guard, that's more of a luxury than a need. Brunskill can fill that position perfectly fine. I think we just need to focus on the tackles and mainly the center. And Lake and Tomlinson looks great. So right guard, not a need. Brunskill can fill it, and I think Slater would be a luxury. So
yeah, I think for me, right guard, it's not a need. It comes down to is Daniel Brunskill helping Mike McGlinchey, though? If they don't think that Brunskill is helping Mike McGlinchey enough, then you get a new right guard, because he needs help on that side. And it's kind of evident after what happened last season. Just get him a bit of help, figure that out right away, figure that out if Mike McGlinchey needs help. If he does, get a right guard. If he doesn't, stick with Brunskill. I think it's that simple right there. So, for sure. All right, we're about to move on from the defense. You guys got anything else to say about any offensive position, anything we've talked about so far? All righty, let's move on to the defense, starting with another one of our biggest needs for this team, edge. Obviously, D Ford probably going to be gone soon. I don't know when. We'll have to see what happens. We haven't got a restructure for his contract, which is kind of weird. I think it's like post-June 1st we can come, something right there. I don't know. I'm kind of just blabbing right now, but let's talk about edge. Should the 49ers spend big on edge? In my opinion, yes. I definitely think D Ford was a pivotal part to this team when healthy. I think you need a guy who can be a pivotal part to this team when healthy as well. Because D Ford, it doesn't seem like he's going to get his mojo back. I definitely think you go for a guy. I've been saying Bud Dupree. Another guy I've been hearing, Carl Lawson. That's a name that has come up a lot recently. Hassan Reddick could also be a good option. There's a lot of guys out there, speed rushers, that could really fill that position. I think you go big here. I think this is where this and left tackle, I think this is where most of your money should go this offseason. The money you're spending should go on a big edge or something like that, or do something like that. Yannick Ngakoue, another guy right there. And I'll just bring up Kerry Hyder right here. I don't think he's staying. I think someone's going to overpay him. I think he was really just a system fit for this team. And if someone overpays him, I think it's fine for him to go. If they don't, then we keep him. It's that simple. I think we're fine with Kerry Hyder, but I think a team's going to overpay him. So that's what I'm thinking right now. What's your take on edge?
I mean, one name that might be interesting to like kind of splurge on for a bit would probably be Shaq Barrett. And I mean, like if he's like willing to take a, actually no, if he wanted to take a pay cut, he'd just stay with Tampa Bay. But if we have some extra money somewhere else, say Trent Williams takes a slightly lesser contract, or we pay a bit less somewhere else and we still get guys. If we have extra room left over, if we bring in Shaq Barrett to play alongside Nick Bosa, I mean, who are we to say no? But that's more wishful thinking than anything.
Joseph, what you got for this one?
Shaq Barrett would be amazing. It's not happening. Sorry to splurge your bubble. I do think that.
Is he frozen or is that just me?
No, he's not. I think it's you. You were having
okay, yeah, because my network just switched. That's what happened. I think we're good. So Rohit cut out, and then I just saw Rohit nodding, and then I didn't hear anything from you. I was like, what the heck is going on? But all right, continue what you were saying.
I think Bud Dupree is an amazing option. Yannick Ngakoue. If we can get a line of Bosa, Armstead, Kinlaw, and then a great edge, or not, doesn't have to be great, a good edge, then that would bring the best out of Eric. That would bring the best out of Kinlaw, and then Bosa back would be amazing. If we can solidify front four and get a solid edge, that would help this team tremendously.
Yeah, and here's my thing about Bud Dupree. I know Eric says right here, Bud Dupree had an ACL tear. The thing about that is he's going to be cheaper because of that ACL tear, and I think that's why I'm willing to go after him. Even though he had an ACL tear.
My problem with that is... Oh, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, I'll go ahead. But anyways, he's going to be a bit cheaper, and people are saying he should be ready for training camp. Even though an ACL tear is a bit risky, if you get a cheap option ready for training camp, I think it's worth taking a shot on him. The Niners have a very deep offensive line. Yes, it will be worse without a guy like Bud Dupree, but then you can get a depth guy to fill in. I think there's going to be a lot of depth pieces added to this defensive line. You could get a guy in like, I mean, there's a lot of guys on this defensive line. I'm just trying to name one. I was going to say Ronald Blair, but he got cut the other day, so can't do that. But they're going to bring in someone in, whether it be a guy, whether it just be bringing back Kerry Hyder on a cheap deal, whether it be another cheap option for this team. I think it's worth getting a guy like Bud Dupree, in my opinion. And I know people are like, oh, he's really overrated. To that, I can see. I kind of disagree with that. I think he's still a great player, and I think he would work for this team. But again, there are a lot of options out there. So if Bud Dupree is not the guy, they want to go after another option, I'm cool with that.
I mean, my problem with the whole ACL thing was that he suffered it in December. So being ready by training camp, so that would be what, June, July? So that's like 6 to 7 months. Mid-July probably. Yeah, so that's 6 to 7 months. And I mean, some people recover faster from ACL tears than others, but that just seems a bit fast to me. And I'm like, so that carries its own risk. So I'm agreeing with Eric here. I don't think we should go after Bud Dupree because it's an ACL injury that suffered late in the season. And so if you rush the recovery, sometimes it might screw you up even more. I mean, we saw that with Jerick McKinnon. He kind of came back from his ACL early, had more setbacks after setbacks, so he lost an entire extra year again.
What do you guys think about a guy like Aldon Smith? How about him coming back?
I mean, I just want to see where his head is. I wouldn't, as a talent, I'm not opposed to it at all. But is he like mentally prepared to come back to this team, to this city?
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. I think his head is back, in my opinion. I mean, he took a while off from football. Seemed like he's got his head back. And I think bringing him back, I mean, I made a few days ago, I tweeted out my ideal rosters, and Justin Fields was on there. For my Justin Fields roster, which we'll talk about in a little bit, I had Aldon Smith at that edge position replacing D Ford. And I definitely think it would be a good option for this team. Again, on the cheaper side of speed rushers. So, yeah. And Joseph, what did you think about Aldon Smith?
Aldon Smith would be solid. I actually wanted to bring up one guy. It's kind of a hot take. Don't get mad at me. Micah Parsons. There's rumors that he might play edge. Maybe if we like him, it's a possibility. Don't count it out. I don't think it'd be a terrible move, but just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, Micah Parsons. I mean, it comes down to like what we need in the draft more. So I definitely can see that. Hades right here says Leonard Floyd. I'm totally with you on that. Leonard Floyd would be a good option for this team, in my opinion. Again, another guy who can be that speed rusher, a bit on the cheaper side than a guy like Bud Dupree. So I definitely think Leonard Floyd would be a good option. If you really want to go all out, I think you go for a guy like Von Miller. Again, actually, you know what? Scratch that. No, he's coming off an injury. I don't think you do that. But Leonard.
I'll take Von Miller off of any injury.
Yeah, Leonard Floyd, definitely a good option right there. I mean, and Von Miller too. Definitely two good options right there. So there's a lot of good options at edge, and I definitely think we're going to find one of them. So I'm definitely with you guys on that. So, yeah.
I mean, my whole problem with the Von Miller thing, it's that he just recently suffered an injury. I don't know how long the recovery time is going to be, but he suffered it somewhere in November, and he's going to be turning 32.
Wait, no, I think Von Miller suffered it at the beginning of the season.
Oh,
I don't know who you're thinking about.
Then I think I'm thinking of something else, some other injury. But
I don't think he played a snap this season.
Okay,
yeah,
no.
he was out the entire season. I think I forget who you're thinking about, but yeah, it was not Von Miller, but
I was googling his injury history, and I think some other thing popped up because I think someone else was discussing his injury later in the season, so that's why I got confused. My bad.
Gotcha.
But
yeah,
he's also turning like 32 or 33 or later this month, so age plus injury, I'd stay away from Von Miller.
That's definitely fair. I can definitely see that, Von Miller, staying away from him. So, yeah. All right, let's move on to the other part of this defensive line. We talked about edge. Let's talk about defensive tackle. DJ Jones is the only free agent at defensive tackle. Is it a big deal if he leaves? I'm going to start with this one off. No, we have Kevin Givens. That's simple.
I mean, I just love the freak athleticism DJ Jones brings to the team. So I'd hate to lose that, but I think he's replaceable. You'll find like freak athletic gems later in the draft usually. So if you can bring some raw talent like that into the team in like the 5th, 6th, or 7th round, groom him. It might just be a DJ Jones situation all over again. We'll just have a younger, cheaper DJ Jones.
My bad. Can you repeat the question? Was it bring back Kevin Givens?
No, DJ Jones.
Oh,
is it a big deal if he leaves?
I do think DJ Jones. Oh, if he leaves?
Yeah, is it a big deal if he leaves?
Oh, big deal. I may have a different definition of big deal. It's not a big deal, but I do think we would prefer him to be back.
Yeah, I mean, DJ Jones has been one of my favorite players on this team. I would love to see him back. Again, money game. It all comes down to that. Money game, money game, money game. Kevin Givens is a very solid option to start at defensive tackle as well, so I would not mind that. And I think DJ Jones, replaceable guy, love what he brings to this team. If you have to move on for him, it is what it is. So that's my take on DJ Jones. All right, let's move on. We talked about the defensive line. Let's talk about linebacker. Oh, and then let me just remember Hayes' comment. Poona Ford, a very good option to replace. I definitely think, yeah, those are two very similar players. I think Poona Ford would be a great option. Also learning more about the Seahawks. So that in my opinion, is a good option right there. All right, let's move on to linebacker right there. First linebacker question. Actually, my only linebacker question. Should the 49ers stick with Aziz Al-Shair as the starting linebacker, as that's what's projected right now? or did they find a new starter for this team?
I would love to bring back Quan.
Yeah, I think Quan Alexander, I think trading him. Here's my two things with Quan. I mean, yes, he brought that mentality to this locker room, which we needed. Yes, he was a phenomenal player. But my two things, one, people are forgetting he's coming on from the Achilles injury. I feel like everyone who's talking about, well, we should bring back Quan, forgets that he's coming off an Achilles injury. He's still going to want money. I don't think it's going to work out because of that. And number two, I definitely think, well, I lost what I was going to say. But yeah, sorry. Number two, Achilles injury and then money. As I said, I was talking about money right there. Again, money game. If he's cheap, yes, you absolutely bring him back. Bring in that presence. But if he's not cheap at all, I think it's as simple as just keep Aziz Al-Shair and move on to a guy who can possibly just compete for the starting job, not even just get it. A guy who I really like is Avery Williamson of, I believe, the Pittsburgh Steelers now. That could be a guy who he has started in the past. He has been a high-profile guy as a free agent. He has been linked to the 49ers in the past as well, I believe. That could be a guy that you bring in and start at linebacker, compete with Aziz Al-Shair. He's kind of fallen off a bit, so I definitely think you're going to have that competition. It will push both of those to go over the top, and I think it would really work out for the 49ers. So they got a guy like Avery Williamson in.
I mean, what's going to be interesting to see is one thing we kind of have to address really this stream is that we have a new defensive coordinator now in DeMeco Ryans, and with Robert Saleh, the main focus that he had in 2019, 2020 was generating a lot of pressure with just a four-man rush. We don't know if DeMeco Ryans is going to employ that same philosophy. So my question is, do you think DeMeco Ryans might want to go with a different direction in terms of that third linebacker? Because let's be honest, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw are not going anywhere. They're solidified into their spots. So you think there's a chance we might bring in a more pass rushing type linebacker in who fits this kind of like 4-3 this 4-3 scheme we're running? Maybe just a pass rushing linebacker guy to help generate extra pressure.
Possibly, I definitely think Avery Williamson he's more of a middle linebacker, but he's been playing in 3-4 schemes, so he definitely knows stuff about that. So maybe that could be another guy to bring in. But you make a great point right there. Maybe a bit more of a pass rushing linebacker. I've been looking at more like middle linebackers to kind of fit that 4-3 scheme that we've been running. But getting a pass rushing linebacker, especially if we don't get an edge, that might be a good idea for this team. Obviously, I think the best one available would be Levante David, but he's not.
He just signed an extension.
Yeah, exactly. Who was a possible free agent, Levante David, but now he's gone, and he would have been too expensive. So I don't think that would ever work out. But yeah, I definitely think Aziz Al-Shair, give him at least some competition. I think they're going to bring in a guy personally, again, like Avery Williamson, bring in a guy like that. And he's not going to be the starting linebacker right away. He's going to have to fight for that position with Aziz Al-Shair. So that's what I'm thinking right now at the linebacker position, that third linebacker position for the 49ers. As you said earlier, Rohit, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, those guys are locked up unless something massive happens.
I mean, a name that might be interesting to watch would be KJ Wright, because he's a free agent. I don't think he's come back to Seattle. So
that could be interesting too, for sure.
And it would be hilariously poetic that we bring in another person from the Legion of Boom defense that Seattle just straight up abandoned.
Yeah, that would definitely be interesting to see. So I'm totally with you on that. All right, Joseph, you got any more thoughts on linebackers that you want to talk about?
I think KJ Wright is a great idea. I do think he's done in Seattle. They just got Jordan Brooks. Well, last draft they got Jordan Brooks, so I think that he's going to take his role. And I do think KJ Wright's a possibility. You mentioned Quan with injuries and stuff. I think Quan might take a pay cut just to come back. And other than on the field, I think having Quan back would be more of just a presence thing in the locker room. The guys love him. I think it'd be amazing to have the hot boys back.
Yeah, my only problem with Quan is it's not only is the injury thing, but at the same time it's like, do you think the relationship between the 49ers and him has soured a bit? Because that trade, let's be honest, came out completely nowhere.
I don't think it's sour because Quan was the only reason they moved Quan was because of cap. I thought for sure Quan would have been moved no matter what. There were rumors that he was going to get moved during free agency. The only reason he didn't last year free agency, the only reason he didn't is because of that pec injury. And I was saying all along, this Quan's going to be gone after this year no matter what. He was gone a bit earlier than I thought he would be, but I don't think it's sour at all. I think he knew it was coming. I think everyone kind of knew it was coming. And the Niners, even though they didn't get much for that, they got like a comp fifth or something like that. I forget what it was, but it wasn't much, but it worked out for the Niners. They got a fifth. Quan didn't do much in New Orleans because he had that Achilles injury. But I don't think there's any bad blood between the two. So yeah, that's what I gotta say. You guys got anything else to say before we move on? Perfect. All right, cornerback. This is definitely the biggest need of our defense, in my opinion. I got 4 questions for this. As I said, biggest need on our defense. This is going to be a pretty quick question. In my opinion, I'm going too fast to do it. Out of all the positional needs, where does quarterback rank? I say 2 behind quarterback.
I put a 3 behind quarterback and left tackle.
I'll have it as 2. Actually, I think left tackle's a bigger need. But I just think that that's more solidified, I guess you could say, with Slater or Trent Williams. So I will say 2.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of with Joseph on that one. That's why I'd say 2. Left tackle, I think it's a bit more solidified. Also, we still have Trent Williams, so not as big as a need right now. The big need is just re-signing him, but if he leaves, then left tackle is probably your number 2, in my opinion. So that's what I'm thinking right now about cornerbacks. So, yeah. All right, and our best cornerback available probably that we're probably going to re-sign, that we could re-sign, I should say, is Jason Verrett. How much money are you guys willing to give Jason Verrett? Give me a money range. Go ahead.
9 to 11, maybe up to 12 or 13. Only if it's incentive based, and I think that's the big thing we need to focus on is giving him a high paying incentive based deal. Because although it was kind of ironic that we had a really injury plagued year and he played. What? Did he play every game? He did, right?
I think he missed one.
He missed one game?
Yeah, he definitely missed a game, I think. I forget. But this was by far his healthiest one of his healthiest seasons in the NFL.
So having the injury past that he has, I don't think it would be smart to give him a 3-year, 4-year guaranteed, high guaranteed money contract. So if we can give him an incentive-based deal off of games played and accolades, all pros, whatever, then I think it would be a very, very good signing. But I won't give him more than 10 mil if it's not incentive based.
Ultimately, I'm going back to the thing that we've said this entire time: money game. If we get him back with the right deal, if he's willing to come back on the right deal, go for it. If he wants to get paid more, then let him walk.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I think the thing with Jason Verrett is I think he's going to want a lot of money. He hasn't had this opportunity in the past, and he made the best out of himself in a contract year. Great job for him. I personally think I'm kind of with Joseph on this one. 9 to 11 mil incentive-based contract is probably what you're looking at for him. Give him those incentives, make him work towards that. Then he'll be more inclined to get a deal. So I like Joseph. I really like what you said about that. So I'm kind of with you on that as well. So for sure. Speaking of a cornerback in free agency, when we already signed Emmanuel Mosley, should we start Emmanuel Mosley next year? Is he a starting caliber cornerback? And this might be too early to answer. Personally, I think considering the money we gave him, I think he should start because that's a lot of money for a guy who's a backup cornerback. And worst case, we might have to cut him in training camp if he's not looking like that. I wouldn't be surprised if we do that. But Emmanuel Mosley is a guy who, in my opinion, we should start at cornerback number 2 because of that contract.
My problem is that we have a lot of free agents at corner. And it kind of depends on who we bring in where, but I think I'm with you, Sam. I wouldn't mind bringing him back as I wouldn't mind bringing him back as a cornerback 2, or even as a slot corner in case Keelan Williams walks, which is a very, very valid possibility.
Yeah, that too. I can definitely see Keelan Williams leaving. So for sure, Joseph, what you got on Emmanuel Mosley?
The money we gave him, assuming that it's guaranteed, I do think he will start. I don't want him at cornerback 2. Not that he will be terrible at cornerback 2, but I think if anything, he might play nickel just because he's tough, he can tackle, and towards the end of last year, with mobile quarterbacks, we kind of saw by Salah that he likes to send that nickel guy. K1 went down, then Jamar Taylor, he sent him to kind of put a contain on mobile quarterbacks and Kyler Murray and worked really well. And on Russell Wilson as well. And then Jamar got hurt, and he actually brought in Jimmy Ward to play that role. So I do think that Mosley could kind of play that blitzing role, assuming that DeMeco Ryans kind of takes that from Robert. So, yeah, but I don't think he will play corner 2.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think you go after the draft to get your cornerback too, but I think the money you paid Emmanuel Mosley, I definitely seems like he kind of has to. I don't think I really want him. Let me just rephrase my answer. I don't want him playing cornerback too. I think that's what's going to happen though, because the 49ers, they don't draft cornerbacks. They're probably not going to get a guy in the first few rounds at cornerback. So they're probably going to stick with Mosley, which in my opinion, I think there are better options out there. But it is what it is. I'm fine with him at cornerback too. Nickel might be a good option if Keelan Williams leaves. So we'll have to see how that is right there. But yeah. All right. Last cornerback question. Another free agent for this cornerback class, kind of like everyone that we have. Kind of like every cornerback, I should say. Ahkello Witherspoon, is it worth it to bring him back? I'll start this one off. Yes, cheap, improved last season. That simple.
Again, money game. Bring him back at the right price, I'm in.
I'm going to say no, just because I do think he had an amazing end of the year. I know we don't like PFF, but they had him ranked like top 3 corner, which is kind of absurd, but just something.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. I do think he might want to get some decent money, and I do think a team will offer him some decent money. And it's kind of weird to say, but I think we have a huge range of how our cornerback tandem could look like. I think we could have a top 5 cornerback tandem all the way to a bottom 5 cornerback tandem based on the way that our front office handles our cornerbacks. A guy like A.J. Boye or Casey Hayward would be ideal alongside Verrett and maybe Mosley at slot. That would be an amazing cornerback tandem. Or we could go a little cheaper with Witherspoon. If we're bringing him as a backup and he wants to go for cheap or he wants to take a small deal, I'd love it. But as far as the corner 2, I don't see it because I do think a team will offer him some solid money.
Yeah, I mean, if a team does offer him solid money, then you don't keep him. That simple. I think you really just – I think you just let you try to get him a cheap contract. That's really all you do. I mean, I'm not paying Ahkello Witherspoon too much considering that he might not even start next year. We already did that with Emmanuel Mosley. I'm not willing to do that on another cornerback unless they're for sure going to be a starter. So that's my take on Ahkello Witherspoon. You guys got any other things you want to talk about cornerback? Alrighty. Let's move on to safety. This is my last positional question for this team, positional specifics question for this video. Jaquiski Tartt is probably the biggest free agent at safety. Not probably, is the biggest free agent at safety. Is it worth bringing him back?
I'm going to start. Is it worth bringing him back? It also, obviously, money. It's kind of all we've been talking about. It's kind of boring because that's all we've been saying. But yeah, I don't know if he will go around the $4 million mark just because to go on a prove-it deal, not long-term. Maybe he wants to take a prove-it deal because he just was hurt. He had turf toe, right?
Yeah, turf toe. And he didn't come back after that.
Yeah, and he didn't come back. I think it might be a little severe. I'm a big fan of Tartt. One of my favorite players on the team. So I do want him back, but if he can't stay healthy, I don't think it's happening unless he wants to take a prove-it deal, which I would completely not mind at all.
I mean, ultimately, if the finances line up right, I'm in. That's all I can really say. I mean, I'd love to bring him back, but we just got to see how everything falls.
Yep, I'm totally with you. I mean, again, money game. Again, as Joseph said, I mean, it's a boring answer, but that's really how this team is going to approach the offseason with a lot of positions. One guy who I definitely think you can get for cheaper than Tartt is Malik Hooker of the Indianapolis Colts. We were linked to him last year. I definitely think we're going to be linked to him this year. Young guy, can play decently, can start at safety for sure. I mean, the 49ers don't value safety too much, I feel like. Jimmy Ward, I mean, they value Jimmy Ward a lot. I don't think they value Tartt as much, even though Tartt is a phenomenal player. I don't think they value him as much. And I definitely think you're looking at Malik Hooker would fit in the system really well. So I definitely think that's another guy, cheaper option that you can bring in right there. So for sure. That's all I got on safety. You guys got anything else on safety? Anything about the defense before we move into the last few questions?
I want to say a lot of Niner fans are kind of bringing Malik Hooker into the conversation. I wouldn't mind it if we can get him for cheap, sure. But he doesn't do anything well. He's been all around solid, but he doesn't do anything well. And that's not anything that really appeals to me. So that's all I really got to say. I'd rather bring back Tartt than bring in Hooker.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'd rather bring back Tart for sure. I think Hooker's a good option. Like cheapness of that, I think that's what you're looking for in a guy like Malik Hooker, and I definitely think it would work right there. So yeah, for sure. And as Last Second Sports said, you definitely need some young talent in this secondary for sure. And I think Malik Hooker could fit that role decently. So, and I mean, you have to. I think the 49ers have to use the draft this draft on secondary. I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. I mean, you need young guys. It's that simple. So I'm totally with him on that. And yeah, that's really all I gotta say on safety right now. But you guys got anything else?
I don't think we use this draft as far later rounds. I do think we will. I think we might even take 2 corners, like 4th, 6th, 7th round or something, and a safety. The safety class this year is not good at all. Corners are really solid, but I don't think we take anything early. We will go vet at corner. I can almost guarantee that. I'd be really shocked if we go young in the first or second round.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first or second round, you could go a guy like Caleb Farley, Patrick Surtain. Personally, I think, in my opinion, Surtain's by far and away the best corner in this draft. In my opinion, Farley is going to be the better scheme fit. So you really could go either way. This cornerback group could be completely reshaped, so it could change. Right now, I think it's a bit too early to say. I think you have to wait out to see where the cornerbacks fall and the dominoes fall for this team. So that's my take on either of those guys. If you guys want to answer that question, feel free to.
Between Farley and Surtain, I think Surtain is more NFL ready. Farley was wide receiver before, converted to cornerback, so I do think he will take some time to at least understand the corner game in the NFL, as most corners do. But I think Farley's athletic capability and scheme fit is insane, and his ceiling is through the roof. I would take Farley.
I mean, at this point, the question is, what do you value more? Do you value the talent or do you value the scheme fit? If you value the scheme fit, go with Farley. If you value the talent, go with Surtain.
I think Farley is better than Surtain, honestly.
Oh, so you have Farley as your cornerback one?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I mean, the cornerback one, it's really between those two. I have Surtain. From Rohit's answer, I think he would say Surtain. You're also a Bama guy, so kind of be wrong for you not to put Surtain. But yeah, it depends on what you value more, who you think is better, who you think's the better scheme fit, and it really could go either way between those two. If you have to take one of those two guys for this team, it's going to be interesting. If they want to go cornerback round one, it's going to be interesting to see who they actually want there. So that's what I'm thinking about that. All right, a few more questions. So let's talk about the draft a little bit. I don't know why I'm stuttering. I'm just speaking way too fast. Let me slow down a little bit. If the 49ers want to move up in the draft, are there any players that you are willing to give up to do that?
Okay, I kind of want to go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I brought up earlier with Kendrick Bourne that I have something I want to say later. This is kind of a hot take. I love this guy, so I don't know if I want him traded. But Deebo Samuel. It's kind of, I know some people might be mad at me for this, but we can trade up to 3 probably with Deebo, maybe 12th pick, a 3rd or 2, whatever works. I do think Deebo's a guy that could be traded just because this is such a deep class. We can get our quarterback of the future, whether that's Wilson, assuming the Jets go Fields if the Jets go Wilson, or if we like Lance, we take Lance at 3. So, just because I think Shanahan, and this might be one of his things where he takes a wide receiver kind of early each draft. He took Hurd third round. He had Deebo. He took Ayuk. So I think that he might take another wide receiver round 2, go quarterback round 1, and then we address whatever other need later in the draft.
I mean, ultimately, I think I'd be willing to give up Deebo as well because Shanahan likes to draft receivers early. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Deebo moved. But if we do move up, it's got to be for quarterback. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I think quarterback, you have to move up. That's the only reason I'm moving up. Unless you lose Trent Williams and you really want a guy like Penei Sewell, which I don't think will happen, then you may move up for him. I mean, that I think you can wait on Rashawn Slater for that. I think a lot of people say the gap is a lot closer. I kind of disagree. I think Sewell is by far and away that. But I think I wonder if the Niners see it the other way. So we'll have to see about that. But that's what I got for moving up in the draft. If we have to give up a player, I think Deebo Samuel would be a fine option. I mean, yes, it would suck, but it is what it is. You're getting your quarterback. So, yeah, that's really all I got to say about that. Speaking of trades, give me guys. So I'm going to kind of combine 2 questions for you guys. Give me one player who the 49ers could surprisingly trade and give me one player who the 49ers could surprisingly acquire in a trade, if that makes sense.
In terms of trading away a player, I think it's Debo. But the problem is, can you really count it as a surprise? Because we've seen reports kind of saying that the 49ers have been actively trying to shop Debo. So I'm not sure if that's kind of a surprise at this point. But for now, for the sake of what it is today, I'll say it is. And a player that we trade for, actually, I haven't really put that much thought to trade targets.
Yeah, trade targets, there's a lot. I definitely think that it's kind of a broad question. If you guys you don't have to answer that. There's a lot of guys that you could really think about right now. There's literally 31 teams in the NFL not named the San Francisco 49ers. So you get anyone on those teams. So that's definitely a very hard question to answer. If I had to think, if I had a position, I would think it would probably be edge, and maybe a guy like Cam Jordan fills that need. I don't know. That might be a bit. I think that's a bit of a reach, but that's an edge on a team that needs to clear cap. So I definitely think that's a good option. As for someone who we could trade, again, Debo. You've heard rumors that you might want to trade him in a trade to get a pick to acquire some picks. I don't know if that's going to happen. A bit more of a surprise. That's tough. I would probably I'll go Raheem Mostert. I think that's a guy who could get traded. Even though we might need his presence on special teams this year, I think you can move on for him. Again, Shanahan can work with any running back. I think running back could be a bit more surprising right there. So did Juice resign? He did. Kyle Juszczyk,
Really?
it's a big deal. Yes, we have some breaking news. Kyle Juszczyk, 5-year, $27 million signed contract, deal, done. Guys, give me your first thoughts on this.
Return of the Juice. John Lynch wasn't drunk tweeting for nothing.
Yeah, I didn't expect that to be right now. I guess Lynch wasn't hacked. I like that. 5 years is insane. I love that.
Yeah, so 5 years, 20. So let me read the full tweet. 49ers and fullback Kyle Juszczyk have agreed to terms on a 5-year deal worth $27 million. It is signed. They keep their offensive weapon, a priority they concentrate on early. So I think my big takeaway, they're paying him less than $6 million a year. That's fantastic. For a guy that is pivotal for your offense, I thought he was going to be about a bit more than $6 million, something about that. But you get him for a great deal, in my opinion. You don't use that much cap. You keep a pivotal part to this offense. Also, this rules out Ross Dwelly being the fullback for this team. I think that's probably my short reaction to it. But this is a great deal for the 49ers. I'm hyped about this. This works out really well. Cheap deal. Keep one of your top pieces in this offense. Bring him back on a long-term deal for a fullback, which you never really see. So I definitely like this deal a lot for the 49ers. I think this is, and for Kyle Juszczyk too, congrats to him on everything. I think this is just phenomenal right there. So yeah, man, yep. I'm all for this. This is great.
It's a perfect deal. I'm all for it. It's great.
Yeah, this is. Oh man, I'm hyped about this. You get a key guy back to this team. I'm going to say this a lot, but you get a key guy back to this team on a very good deal. That's all you really need. I thought they were going to have to spend somewhere maybe in even the $8 million range. That's probably a bit high, but you keep if this is the best fullback in football, you keep it under $6 million, a pivotal part to your offense. That's fantastic. I don't care what position that is. If you have a key part to your offense, you keep him under $6 million, or just your team in general. You keep him under $6 million a year and a long-term deal. Fantastic job by this front office to get Kyle Juszczyk back on board, a guy who many thought would leave. Now you get him back on board, you keep him. And we could do a whole spiel of questions for this. So earlier I said that if the 49ers were to go after a guy like Justin Fields, they probably wouldn't have the room to keep Juszczyk. After this deal, I'm kind of blown away. I think that this is a fantastic deal. I think they can definitely go after a guy a bit more expensive in the draft, give up some more capital. There's no need to fill any more like that many holes. Right now, I think you're back at, we're going to be at 30 million. I think now we're back down to 24, what we were at before, somewhere around that range. So, we're starting off where we're back. But now you have Kyle Juszczyk locked up. That's the big thing here. And you still got to cut Garoppolo if you want to do that. You still got to cut D Ford. Weston Richburg, you already restructured. So there's a lot that the Niners could do right now. And this contract is just massive for this team, in my opinion.
But now the real question is John Lynch going to basically just foreshadow each and every single one of the moves we make?
I don't know. We'll have to see. That would be interesting.
I'm gonna need that John Lynch cryptic Watson tweet.
We need a no. Are you serious? No, cryptic Darnold tweet. Are you out of your mind? I'm just kidding. But yeah, this is just a phenomenal deal. Obviously, last night was kind of a fun night just seeing all of that. But congrats to Kyle Juszczyk for getting that deal. We got a guy back. I'm good with that. I'm totally good with that. No complaints from me at all. You guys got any more thoughts about that, real quick?
I just want to add, we also have to wait for the contract details. But I love having Juice back. He's a great talent. 5 years. I love it. Good job, Lynch. Good job, everyone in the front office.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Kyle Juszczyk, like this, like usually a lot of 49ers fans are like, oh, this is like, it's not getting out first, then the contract details are released. You've seen that cycle photo before. Every Niners fan has, let's be real. This is one I just like right off the bat, honestly. It's ridiculous. And he is obviously, I think this is kind of self-explanatory, highest paid fullback in the league and NFL history by far. So, yeah, man, I'm hyped about this. Phenomenal deal, in my opinion. All right, and we'll just wrap up this video real quick. The last question, we saved the best for last. Guys, give me your wide receiver. No, wide receiver. What am I talking about? I saw Dom's comment and it said wide receiver right there. That got on my mind right there. Give me your starting quarterback prediction for the 49ers. Who is the starting quarterback of the 49ers in 2021?
I mean, ideally, it's one of Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, or Trey Lance. But at the same time, it's like, will this franchise actually be aggressive enough to actually go get a guy they want? And I think, and it's for that reason alone why I want to say Jimmy Garoppolo, simply because I don't know if this franchise is actually going to be aggressive enough to move up in the draft to get a guy they want. Because let's be honest, none of those four are moving down into the number 12 spot. And I am not touching Mac Jones or Tyler Trask with a 50-foot pole until day 3. Actually, no, not day 3, day 2.
Joseph, what you got for this?
Don't be surprised if we take Mac Jones at 12. He's a guy that can succeed with good talent around him. That's exactly what we have. Very QB-friendly scheme. So I would not be surprised with Mac Jones at 12. My prediction, though, I'm going to be a little optimistic. I'm going to say Justin Fields. It's kind of more of a guy I want more than I think will happen. But I'm just going to say it just for good vibes.
Well, I think it's obvious. It's obviously going to be Sam Darnold. No, I'm just kidding. I think Sam. I mean, even though Sam. By the way, let me just clarify. I know I'm like trolling about Sam Darnold on Twitter. He's not my number one option. My number one option is Justin Fields, and that's who I do think we're going to get. I think Kyle just likes him a lot. Excuse me for that text. I don't know how loud that was. I don't know if you heard that. But Kyle, it seems like he likes Justin Fields a lot from what we've already seen. He's worked with him in the past. I think Kyle would be aggressive and get this guy. You're probably going to have to move up. I think tweeted this out today. The teams that you're probably going to have to look at to move up with: Miami, Atlanta, and Detroit. You have to get past Carolina if you want Justin Fields, and the earlier you move up, the better, in my opinion. If the Jets take Fields over Wilson, get Wilson right away. Trade to 3. No, just don't hesitate. Just do it. I mean, preferably I would rather have Zach Wilson over Justin Fields, but most reasonable option, I think you're looking at Justin Fields. And even though Justin Fields is behind Trey Lance on my quarterback rankings, for the 49ers, I have Justin Fields over Trey Lance, if that makes sense, for just a scheme fit. So Justin Fields, in my opinion, is going to be the 49ers starting quarterback next year. So that's what I think. Again, a lot of good options. Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, Mac Jones, all of those options, decent options. So that's what I'm thinking right now. So for sure.
And I just want to add, I'm willing to put down $100 right now that the Niners were one of the teams that had Zach Wilson as QB1 over Trevor Lawrence. I truly believe that.
You're getting lit up that stimulus hit.
If Zach Wilson falls to 3, I will bet my life on it that the Niners will be extremely aggressive into trading up to Miami's pick, possibly trade Deebo Samuel to get Zach Wilson. I do think he's a perfect fit for us. I would love him on the team, and I'd bet anything on that happening.
Yeah, I mean, I think Zach Wilson is going to be the best fit for the Niners. It's going to happen. Probably not. I think the Jets are going to take him, but Justin Fields, in my opinion, the third best option for the 49ers. And I mean, I actually kind of disagree. I think Trevor Lawrence is by far and away the best option. I
said the Niners. Remember, there's an article or a report that came out that there's a few teams that had Zach Wilson over Trevor Lawrence. I'm not saying that for myself. I'm saying that there were teams that had that. And I'm saying I believe the Niners are probably one of those teams.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely with you on that. So interesting, but we'll have to see. You guys got anything else you want to say before we end the stream? All right, perfect. Well, I appreciate you two coming on for this. I know, Joseph, it was last minute for you, so thanks for making the arrangement. Rohit, again, thanks for coming on. You guys are always the best coming on. But, guys, again, if you guys have any questions, just DM me on Twitter, tweet at me on Twitter. Those are where you can find me right there, or reply in the comments. Do that, whatever you want. Do whatever you want. Also, ask Rohit right there, at RohitKanan71. Tune in to the Faithful Four podcast. And, guys, that's going to do it. Kyle Juszczyk, back of 49er, hyped about that. So, well, I'll put the timestamp to my reaction as well, just so you can see it. So, yeah. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it from me and everyone here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Go Niners.
Go Niners.